Right, 8:38. So a blind man wins a landmark legal case against Westminster Council over the bedroom tax. A judge ruling that Surinder Lal's second bedroom can't be classed as one. It's the first case of its kind in England. His lawyers successfully argued his spare bedroom was used to store vital equipment to help with his disability, arguing his full housing benefit should be reinstated, and he won. You may recall, actually, a call that we took to call Clegg a couple of weeks ago from a woman in Basildon who was using her spare room for oxygen equipment, like a small oxygen generating unit. We'll be getting a hold of her and possibly putting to her the fact that if this gentleman at Westminster has been successful, there's, one would have thought, every possibility the case is at least worth looking at for that woman out in Basildon. Anyway, Mr. Lal appealed against Westminster Council's reduction of his housing benefit. The equipment in his bedroom means that he leads a, quote, normal life. He's the sole occupant of his housing association flat in Maida Vale. He was about to lose his benefit, £12 a week from his benefit, £12 a week. It's a misnomer to call it a bedroom. It's a room that's used for my equipment, he said. The court agrees. So what does that mean about the bedroom tax or sole occupancy subsidy? Andrew Teacher is property expert and director of Blackstock, an independent consultant, joins me now. Where does this leave the bedroom tax?
Well, it could be on quite shaky ground if lots of people decide to use this same argument. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, I'll put that up front, but I mean, it would seem to be the case that, based on this at least, if you can argue that it's not a bedroom, that you might be onto a good one. I mean, I think there is a bit of a grey area here, because I mean, I live in North London near Manor Park. We've got a second bedroom which I use as an office. So is it a second bedroom? Is it an office? I'm not claiming housing benefits, so I guess it's no concern of the councils. But I think where, as this case would suggest, there is a clear medical use there. At least that's what they've argued, and that's what's been accepted by the court. So one would say that, if other people are in a similar position, that it is only right that that the tax be rescinded. But I think what this points to is the wider problem with this whole idea. It's another one of these fantastical policy ideas dreamt up by people that don't live in the real world. I think we have got a problem with social housing. There is also an issue. I think whilst people would accept that society should help out people at the lower end of things, there is a problem with people living in houses that are too big for their needs. But the simple idea that you can just shift people around when there aren't any spare homes is ridiculous. And that's basically the position that we've got in, which is the result of successive governments not building any social housing.
And that is the reality, isn't it? Because in a perfect world, you've got something like, I think, 250,000 people or families in this country who desperately need to move up because they're living in cramped condition. You've got a large number of people who have got, quotes, spare rooms, whatever. In a perfect world, the equation would work. But, of course, what politicians often fail to realise, it's not a perfect world.
No, and I think the problems that we have here are multiple. There's a refuse to accept that housing plays a part in everything. Poor housing is what leads to poor education. If people don't have room to do their homework, they end up not doing their homework. They end up possibly going into crime, which then leads to health costs and health issues and reparational issues on the crime front. And there are all kinds of costs which spiral out of poor housing at a young age for people in this country. And it frustrates me, and I know many people, that there has been no acceptance of this fact. All we do in this country is paper over the cracks. And I've got one suggestion for you, Nick, that perhaps put to listeners and see what they think. There's been a lot of debate over Labour possibly U-turning on the HS2 development, and many people saying it's a waste of money. But how about this? If to fix Britain's regional connectivity issues, we build a third runway which will be paid for by Heathrow Airport, that will connect all of the regional cities back to London and back to China and back to Brazil and Russia and everything like that. We spend the money from HS2 on social housing, which the government will own and will get the income from.
50 billion, by the way, just to tell my listeners.
So that's... I'm too early in the morning for me to do maths like that, but that's going to be quite a lot of social housing. That's obviously an income-generating asset. So if you build that as the government, you can flog it to a pension fund who will pay you money for it. And then they hold on to it.
Okay.
And that solves a lot of issues. It creates a great income stream for the government. It creates lots of construction jobs, which you're always banging on about how important they are. And in one fell swoop, we get the connectivity issues paid for by somebody else.
Lastly, you know better than anybody, and briefly, because many people would agree with that great idea, But it takes a long time to get the necessary planning permission to put the foundations in to put up a house. That's the problem, isn't it?
Well, it doesn't. I'd point east. I'd point to the Olympics. We did that. Admittedly, it took a few years, but that was a massive development. Same with King's Cross, and I think legally we have, councils have permissions to compulsorily purchase land, and that is called CPO is the jargon for it. But it means they can buy it by getting a sort of a document from the lawyers, and where they have to then pay market rate for that. And we can do that. We just don't use it. But it's not, admittedly, not hugely popular if you're buying up, Mr. Jones's 250-year-old butchers. But frankly, that there is a point at which this sort of localism agenda refuses to accept themes and policies of national significance. And I think, if it's okay for people to buy up land and build HS2 or buy up land and build an Olympic site, then why can't they do it to build homes?
Andrew Teacher, property expert, director of Blackstock, an independent consultancy. Thank you. Coming up, your views on the bedroom tax.